hordes of infected, Dr. Voldemort, and Teletubbies? While it feels like it's been 84 years since an entry into the 28 Days Later franchise, director Danny Boyle hits us with a bloody new addition that surprisingly packs a lot of humanity. In this video, we'll be taking a deep dive into the movie, how it ties into the other films, and its connection to the newly announced trilogy, which is rumored to star Cillian Murphy from the original 28 Days Later. So join me as we take on the infected. It's about to get bloody. 28 Years Later actually starts, well, 28 years ago. There's actually a lot of debate surrounding what year the films take place. For example, these Happy Eater restaurants we see were rebranded to Little Chef in 1997, 5 years before the supposed events of 28 Days Later. The sequel, 28 Weeks Later, saw the rebuilding of Wembley Stadium, which didn't happen until 2007. So to make things easier, we're going to assume that the franchise started the year 28 Days Later came out, which is 2002. It also happens to be the date the Holy Island mission was established. Starting in the Scottish Highlands, the film begins with an absolutely terrifying sight: Teletubbies. In fact, some of the shots in 28 Years Later are homages to the Teletubbies set. Unbeknownst to these children of the corn, it's the day the rage virus takes over Britain. Not only does this sequence set the tone of the film, but we'll see this kid, a boy named Jimmy, as an adult at the end of the movie. More on that later. It's also important to note that these are not zombies, rather still living humans infected with a virus that makes them go mad. Poor Jimmy's aunt and family are viciously killed as the infected descend upon this quaint community, forcing Jimmy to run to the safety of the local church. There he'll meet his psychotic priest father, who believes this is a glorious day, one foretold as a day of judgment. He gives Jimmy a cross necklace, something we'll see him wearing as an adult in the final scenes of the film. The priest welcomes the horde of infected as he is devoured, becoming one of them, leaving the fate of Jimmy unknown until the end. Fast forward 28 years later to Holy Island, a community of survivors set against the backdrop of a quarantined Great Britain. We'll even see the flag of St. George, or flag of England. St. George also happens to be the patron saint of soldiers. Fun fact, this is an actual island off the coast of Northumbria called Lindisfarne, where it's said the Vikings spilled the blood of saints. It connects to the mainland via a causeway, only accessible during low tide, adding an extra layer of security to the town's defenses. Life on Holy Island is pretty quaint. Citizens are designated jobs, and it takes on a very commune-like quality. This is also where we meet our main character, Spike, a 12-year-old going on his first mission to the mainland, a full 2 years before most boys undertake this rite of passage. His mother, Isla, suffers from a deteriorating brain condition, one which will later be identified as cancer by Dr. Ian Kelson. The use of jump cuts as she suffers from memory loss highlight how disjointed her memories have become. Her brain, thoughts, and memories are an island, separated from each other, so it's fitting her name literally translates to island. Along with his father Jamie, Spike and his dad venture to the mainland to secure Spike's first kill of an infected. The beautiful British countryside is on display with roaming herds of deer, hiding the fact that death lurks round every corner. And it doesn't take them long until they encounter a Slolo, these fat, bottom-feeding creatures that scrounge for anything they can get, like worms. And just like Kratos teaching his son how to hunt, Jamie lets Spike get a direct hit into the infected's neck. It's also here we get our first use of the Matrix-style kills, a shot achieved by attaching 20 iPhones to an array. The first main stop is this abandoned cottage where they find a man tied upside down. It's hard to see, but whoever did this carved the name Jimmy across his torso, the same name as the young boy we saw at the beginning. Is this a sort of punishment, warning, or are Jimmy and the gang a group of sadistic murderers? On their way home, we also get our first glimpse of an alpha silhouetted against this backdrop. Alphas are souped up infected that aren't only stronger than others, but also smarter. It is said that the rage virus acts as a steroid, allowing alphas to grow to incredible size and withstand tremendous amounts of pain. Jamie and Spike are spotted and seek refuge in the same cottage from earlier, laying low for the night until they can make it back to the island. And if their luck couldn't get any worse, a chimney collapse forces them to make a run for the island as a nearby alpha hunts them down. And because it's too early, the tide hasn't fully lowered, making their escape extra dangerous. However, a well-timed ballista from the guard tower saves their lives. Spike and Jamie are greeted with a hero's welcome, and Jamie regales the town with Spike's bravery, even though Spike apologized to his father on how cowardly he was. The happiness is short-lived when Spike discovers his father's infidelity. Combine this with the rumor of a crazy doctor on the mainland, Spike creates a diversion by starting a fire so he can take his mom in search of this doc. Isla and Spike's first stop are the ruins of an abandoned church, where Spike is nearly killed by a Slolo in his sleep. That is if it weren't for Isla killing it, but it seems she has no recollection of doing so the morning after. On their journey, Isla and Spike are hunted by this emaciated infected who, when the trailer first came out, many assumed was Cillian Murphy's character from 28 Days Later, which has since been debunked. However, director Danny Boyle says Cillian will return to the series. With more infected on the way, Isla and Spike seek refuge in a Happy Eater restaurant, which over the years has built up flammable benzene gas from the nearby gas station. It's this gas that will ignite when they're saved by a Swedish soldier named Eric. Eric's part of a now-deceased military unit whose patrol boat sank off the coast. He's our only real connection to the outside world, which seems to be operating as normal, unlike Britain. This would be a retcon of the 28 weeks later ending, which saw the virus spread beyond Britain to Paris. Moving along, they hear the sounds of distant screams. Isla ventures toward it in this abandoned train to uncover a pregnant infected. If you're like me, you're probably wondering how this infected got pregnant. There are two different scenarios. Either she turned into one after becoming pregnant, or the infected have evolved and are procreating. We see many of these red stylized shots which display the infected's animalistic tendencies, and sex would certainly fit under this label. But what's weirder is this moment Isla shares with the pregnant infected as she gives birth. It's almost like this mother-to-mother kinship, suggesting that there's still some bit of humanity buried within them. It would also contradict Jamie's statement that the infected have no souls. Eric wants to kill the baby, believing it to be infected, which it's not. And just when he's about to shoot it, his head and spine are ripped from his body by an alpha we'll come to know as Samson. A fitting title since the biblical Samson was depicted as a soldier with incredible strength. Samson chases after them and, well, it looks like they're done for, a miracle. Samson is shot with a sedative dart containing morphine and xylazine by Dr. Ian Kelson. Now you might be curious what that is all over his body. It's not blood, but iodine, which he says is an added layer of protection against the virus. He takes them to his home where we get our first glimpse at the Memento Mori, a series of pillars constructed of bones of the once living and infected. In its center, a pile of skulls, all acting as a reminder that death comes for us all. After all, Memento Mori comes from Latin meaning remember death. We'll even see the process of him making these skulls in this giant pressurized tank. After examining Isla, the doctor comes to the conclusion that Isla has cancer, which is spread to her breasts, lymph nodes, and brain. It will be a painful death, which is why the doc gives Spike a speech about the different kinds of death. Little does Spike know that Isla and the doc have made a deal to give Isla a peaceful one. So they give Spike a little sedative to calm him as the doc shoots Isla with a poisoned dart. Isla's skull is prepared by the doctor, and in a hauntingly beautiful segment, Spike places it atop the pile as the sun rises. Returning home, Spike leaves the baby at the front gate along with a letter to his father. Spike wants to continue exploring the world, to venture out so far that he can't see the sea. Jamie doesn't take this too well, and I imagine he'll set out in search of his son once the tide allows. This would go against the island's rules that once someone leaves, you can't go out searching for them. It's also fitting that Spike names the baby after his mother, furthering the film's message of the cycle of life and death. This baby may also be important in finding a cure for the virus. Dr. Kelson stated the placenta may have acted as a safeguard against it, or maybe the baby itself is immune, not unlike the mother in 28 weeks later. The Spike at the end of the film is no longer afraid. He hunts with ease, but even as he learns to live in this violent world, he's still stalked by the infected. Soon overrun, he makes his escape only to be saved by adult Jimmy, the boy we saw at the beginning of the movie. We can tell by his blonde hair and that cross necklace. Everything points to Jimmy being the leader of a cult, and he seems to be influenced influenced by Jimmy Savile and his infamous tracksuits. Savile was an eccentric man notorious for his sexual misconduct of children, which definitely does not bode well for Spike. Everyone here wears similar clothing and rocks white hair. I'm also wondering if Jimmy's priest father had any influence on this cult's belief. The upside-down cross suggests Jimmy is a Christ-like figure, using his cult of personality to maintain power and control over his followers. There's even mention of Jimmy in this graffiti as Isla and Spike make their journey across the mainland, which show just how pervasive he is in this area. This is likely where the sequel, The Bone Temple, will take off from, and maybe Jamie joins up with Cillian Murphy's character on a quest to redeem himself and save his son. But what did you think of 28 Years Later? I want to hear your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Thanks for watching, be sure to like and subscribe, and for more bad takes you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at BigStoryYT. Until next time, remember,
Daddy loves you very much.